Roman, thank you for introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Alex. I forgot to introduce myself. A few words about myself. I work for 5 amazing years in FMCG industry, working with predictive analytics. This is how we can look into the future. Marketing mix modeling. This is how promotion affects sales. And ROI analytics. This is how to check if and where business is profitable. For the last 2 years, I am proud to be a part of Orange family, working as data scientist in contact center. And today, we will explore how to enrich contact center analytics with data science in order to improve productivity, decrease costs, and most importantly, deliver better customer experience. Now, we will start with results from multiple surveys, which seeks to quantify how customer experience affects purchasing behavior. 80% of respondents will argue that customer experience provided by the company is as important as product or service quality, which means an environment where multiple economic agents provide products which are closely matched in terms of quality and manufacture standards. Customer experience, flawless engagement can serve you as a powerful competitive advantage. 1 out of 3, 32% of respondents, will stop doing business with us after only 1 bad interaction, and at 70% after 2 or more bad interactions. As a result, we don't have much opportunities to get our service right. Customer will proceed with another suppliers, highlighting that reputational risk for us is very high. Moreover, we have to rescue the situation because more than 50% of respondents will share the story about bad experience. In other words, they will recommend not to buy from our company, which represents multiplicative effect. One bad instance affects the behavior of multiple potential customers. 90% are ready to repeat purchase due to positive customer experience. And causal relationships are transparent. We provide better experience, and customer wants to buy more. Therefore, we unlock revenue opportunities through speed, convenience, knowledgeable service, and meaningful interaction. As a result, we also require tools to collect qualitative and quantitative information emitted by the interaction between customer and contact center in order to identify areas for improvement and generate probability and increase probability of generating positive impression. Now, let's formalize the challenge, how we will call the process or policy which describes the role, the benefits of data analytics for enterprises and main internal and external barriers. According to OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, this challenges as process and is described as small and medium-sized enterprises digitalization. A word very hard to pronounce for me. Now, the term itself encompasses multiple aspects. The company can create a website, setting CRM, a customer relationship management system, or RPA, robotic process automation. But the aspect of digitalization we talk today is called business data analytics. Now, SME can be defined in terms of headcount, in terms of financial statements, but we will define whether or not the company is SME by a type of barriers it faces during the adaptation of data science tool. Now, the first barrier is access to finance. SME may operate by circumstances characterized by a lack of funds, which means that all of the resources are allocated to day-to-day activity, to maintaining production process. Therefore, it suffers financial capacity to invest in data science initiatives. Second one is lack of specialists, which means that SME may struggle to find data science with necessary skills required to initiate and execute data science initiatives. As a result, we will also discuss the tools in this presentation which account for both financial and human capital limitations. So most probably your company can deploy respective tools. And the last one, limited collection and storage of data. Now, customer activity can generate multiple types of data. Visits from online sites, customer purchasing records, inbound call volume. However, information may not be stored in the quality of quantity required to run specific analytical task. Therefore, we will also account for this limitation. Now, we discussed limitation which company can face during the adaptation of analytical tools. Let's also discuss the prerequisites which speed up inclusion of analytical tools. First one, Excel is okay. Now, in a prevailing number of cases, Excel is the main or primary tool to run analytical tasks. In EU area, it is argued that more than 70% of tasks which are related to trend analysis to visualization are run in Excel. Some of the journals referring to Excel as golden hammer of analytics, which is nice because advanced Excel expertise can help you to build more solid foundation and more complex analytical structure. By the way, the presentation will be available on GitHub, so it's not necessary to make, even I'm flattered, photos. You can later upload it. Okay, managerial awareness. So it indicates that SME understand both short and long-term benefits on analytical work. It might be in an actual common challenge. The decision makers, they perceive low expected returns when comparing cost of building infrastructure against possible outcomes, assigning low priority for data science initiatives. But generally, understanding the role of data science, even through our survey, can speed up, can create favorable environment to deploy specific analytical instruments. On-premise computing, we are not discussing today cloud computing. We will basically discuss tools which can be deployed on the company-owned physical infrastructure, and you need to hire a data scientist. I will consider that today's presentation is successful if at least one vacancy for data science position will be opened. Right. Now, imagine you're promoted to a contact center director at Citrus Chat Center. Your main line of duty is to make sure that each inbound call will result in resolution and also be associated with a high customer score. Now, after making yourself acquainted with the process, you highlighted 3 areas you need to focus in order to better understand business. First one is to understand workforce. Essentially, it means to analyze historical data, to calculate number of required staff, as well as come up with appropriate schedule. Second one is cost versus benefits, which means we have to balance number of agents with the associated level of service quality. To put it differently, we cannot simply hire all agents to serve all possible customers because we have limitation of our budget. And quality assurance, we also have to come up with monitoring system which will help us to compare baseline KPI values such as the transfer rate, first call resolution with actual data, just to stay reactive and proactive, to react upon any unfavorable trends. Now, after you implementing 3 processes, you can come up, most probably, with 3 challenges you need to solve in order to improve customer experience. The first challenge is long holding time. Long holding time occurs when we observe significant number of incoming calls and we don't have sufficient number of agents, so the customer has to wait in a queue. It may appear due to an unexpected rise in the call volume. Maybe the company announced a promotion or increase of its product, so as a result, customers are calling to inquiry regarding the issue, or it may be symptomatic of constant understaffing of a contact center, where a company fails to identify optimal number of agents for day-to-day activity. And we have to address this issue because more than 50% of respondents will argue that they will consider to leave the company which offer waiting service time, long waiting service time. Second challenge we should address is misdesigned IVR. IVR stands for Interactive Voice Response System. It represents a menu of options which are provided to client through voice prompts. Please press 1 for service, please press 2 for sales, or press +3 for other issues. Now, this is the first point of contact between client and contact center, and its main purpose is to make sure that the customer will be directed to an agent with the skills sufficient to solve the issue after one interaction. In case IVR menu is not set properly, the customer can lend to an agent with insufficient expertise to help, which result in transfer rate, more long holding time, or maybe dropped call. And again, this issue also should be addressed because 82% of respondents are expecting to solve an issue after contacting only one person. And increasing cost can be a result of both overstaffing or understaffing, Overstaffing means that the company hired excessive amount of units, labor, engines, facilities. And understaffing could be an indicator of a high retention rate, while high retention rate can bring up costs related to hiring and training. And transfer rate. Transfer rate is also a significant factor which penalizes our budget. So it's common business practice to analyze budget performance, taking into account cost per call or cost per transfer. So as a contact center director, you also consulted data scientists, which also offered you two possible directions for analysis. The first one is predictive analytics. Now, in this case, we will speak about prediction of a workload. In our case, we explore technique how to forecast time series, in our case, inbound call volume. In other words, we will try to match demand for assistance and supply for solutions. And second one is the visualization of IVR. In our case, we will discuss how to visualize IVR using 3 diagrams, which is very friendly and efficient way to trace customer journey. Data scientists or decision makers can use this tool to check how the call is routed, what menus are offered to the customer, and overall identify any bottlenecks or breaking points. And as a result, we expect to boost customer satisfaction and drive revenue. Okay, we have to explore two concepts before we proceed to forecasting. Decomposition of a time series. Now, decomposition involves thinking of any time series, any data, as a sum of 3 components. Trend, the most stable one, seasonal, and random component. Now, trend reflects overall motion of a series, is a long-term direction of our inbound call volume. It can be increasing, decreasing, or both. Now, seasonal component. Seasonality reflects fluctuations which appear itself regularly over a specified time period. For example, increase of calls during office hours, decrease in the morning, or seasonality related to specific day of a week. We expect more calls on Monday rather than on Friday, or seasonality related to specific holiday. And random component, which represent intrinsic noise in the data, or can be a result of unexpected events such as network outages or product recalls. So just to speak about composition, 10 or 15 years ago, forecasting literature would highlight forecasting methods based on composition and efficient. But for the last 5 years, we observe exponential growth in interest for forecasting methods based on machine learning, like neural network or random forest, pushing time series out of radar, but in no way compromising its efficiency. And today we'll explore how accurate we can forecast with methods based on decomposition. Now, testing and train split, forecasting is done with a model. Think of a model as a sequence of coefficients which have to be estimated over past observations. In our case, blue portion of the data, training split, will be used to train the model to estimate coefficients. We will generate the forecast, and then we will overlay forecast against red portion of data, against our test split. And this is how we expect to unbiasedly evaluate our accuracy, by checking the forecast against the data which was not used for training. Now, regarding technologies, I spoke about availability, and most of the tools we are going to discuss are open source. First one is R programming language, which, according to Medium.com, is considered the second most popular language for data science after Python. 4 libraries to preprocess data, dplyr, Tibble, and for cat lovers, Forcats. Now, Profit, which is Facebook technology, open source technology to generate forecast. We will use it to forecast inbound call volume by applying specific libraries in R environment, and ggplottrue, which is R library to create visualization. Considered one of the best, if not the best tool to generate customized forecast. Now, regarding the coded, Profit is famous for its accuracy as well as it's fully automated. In our case, we required only 3 lines of code to generate a very accurate forecast. Now, it means that this particular tool can be used to data specialists even not familiar with forecasting technologies. And Just to specify, maybe you're not from telecommunication industry. Among 3 lines of code, there is no place where we specify that we are forecasting inbound call volume. This particular way of forecasting with these technologies can be applied for any industry. You may come up from finance, you want to forecast currency, stock exchange prices, financial market trends. This technology is available. You came from MCG, just like me, you can use it to forecast demand for specific product. So this is not limitation of an instrument, telecommunication. This is just an example of an application. We generated 2 forecasts for 2 time series. Now we will skip visual assessment and we can check 2 numbers above each particular plot. The first number in first case 8% and the second 4% reflects MAPE. MAPE stands for mean absolute percentage error. This is a percentage way to reflect how on average accurate we are. The lower the number, the better we are. In both cases, the forecast accuracy is 4%, and for the second time series is 7%. Now, we can also see in the blue dimmed square that during the first 150 days, both trend and seasonality correlate in terms of movement, but as far as we go to the future, trends diverges. And we would address this challenge later, but so far we can see that forecasts are extremely accurate. Yes, maybe less than 10%, you can consider forecast as extremely accurate. Now, this is forecast horizon, again, forecast accuracy. Now, before you are setting a forecast, you have to make sure that forecast horizon is aligned with the business decision you need to make. If you're planning a schedule for 1 week ahead, make sure that your forecast, your model, is tuned to create best possible forecast for 1 week ahead, not 500 days like in this case. This is an example of another phrase from our financial colleague, that the risk equal to the square root of time. The further we look into the future, the more uncertainty arises. Now, we may think that the forecasting is easy. We applied it on 3 lines of code to generate pretty good forecast. But let's also speak about EDA, exploratory data analysis. This is additional elements of modeling pipeline, which we can introduce in order to improve upon already existing results. Now, the first, what you can do is to remove outliers. Outliers are the power of observation, which significantly deviate from initial data, then can be either too high or too small. So we can remove it just to make sure that our model will produce better forecast. Just to quote one of the speakers, I think David. Yes, this is an example of garbage in, garbage out. We make sure that our data is clean to make sure that the forecast will perform better. This is a statistical procedure, and this is just an example that below over 3 lines of code, we can also introduce additional efforts to improve forecasting. What you can also do is to tune the parameters. Now, if some of you are familiar with Python, Scikit-learn Universe, this is a very simplified version of something which is referred as grid search CV. So essentially, rather than relying on the model itself, we look through all possible parameters to find is any other better combination of parameters to produce forecast over an automated solution provided by a Profit. It will take around 30 minutes to look through around 1,000 possible combinations. And as a result, we can it outputs coefficients which shoot our data better. We apply the best possible model, and we proceed to visualization. Now let's explore if it's worth the efforts to produce such kind of additional pieces of code. Now, at this case, we can focus on 2 numbers. This is the forecast after we implemented specific cleaning procedure. We remove outliers, we tune hyperparameters. For first time series and for second time series, the accuracy increase is 2%. It was 4, became 2. It was 7, became 5. And you might argue that these changes are insignificant. However, we can also argue that in the long term, that small increases in accuracy can actually produce huge impact on our bottom line, on our budget. One more time, you can come from different industry with different time series, with different seasonality, with different number of outliers. So it might be that accuracy improvement will be not 2, but 5, 10, or even 20%. So in case you want to apply the respective tool, just to make sure that you also apply EDA. You will either confirm that the default setting works properly, or you will find a model which would allow different business scenario with more favorable outcomes. This is just an example how we can count lines. In our case, 60% of code was dedicated to data cleaning and tuning, 25% for visualization, and 15% for modeling. I provided two examples of EDA. It actually can take even more space. For example, if we include cross-validation or ensemble forecast, pushing modeling part to 5%. But essentially, this is what makes data science project complicated. You have to clean the data before applying the modeling process. We also spoke about visualization of IVR, and this is very nice application. To the left side is overall template of how customer journey took place. Customer calls, he goes through IVR journey. He can either drop the call, or he can connect to agent, or to the transfer. The tool we will discuss today and present will allow to create tree diagrams. Now, in this case, we can check that the customer goes to main menu, he press 1, he proceeds to LOB billing, LOB is synonym of department, he press 2, and he decides to speak to an agent. Now, if you find my selection of colors distasteful, this particular tool is extremely flexible. You can find appropriate color schedule for any of the element. You can define different types of node, different type of connection, tail ports, head ports, add interactivity and interaction. This is for demonstration, but in actuality, tree of IVR looks much complicated, especially if you add interaction with a voice bot, self-service, or voice notification. But essentially, what it makes IVR journey more readable. And in initial form, IVR, which in our case is presented via syslogs, is extremely unfriendly structure to read. To the left side, we see a typical form of call logs or customer journey. It's encoded with lorem ipsum, which is non-essential text, similar to Latin. But if you see call log for the first time, it doesn't make much sense. It's also present, from our perspective, very dirty and untidy data. Now, what our role as data analyst is to employ regular expressions, which is a way how we can extract pattern from dirty data. Then we apply graphics. This is an open source library, which is used to create visualization, and it's famous for its capabilities to create tree diagrams and network. And this is tool which we're presenting. This is how we can visualize, and also R with the same libraries. So again, most of the data or conclusions we will present today can be made by looking at the data in tabular form, but important part of any work of data science is to create storytelling. One of our speakers today highlighted that the role of engineer is to order chaos. The role of data scientist is to create appealing story. And in case of tree diagrams, this is example how we find appropriate visualization tool for very specific problem. Now let's talk about example inspired by the real application, but this is not what happened in actuality, but this is inspired on something which happened in actuality. So imagine a phone number which have a transfer rate almost 60%. This is above over what we expect in the industry, it's 10%. Now if you take all the possible journey within this number, we can specify the one which ends up in the orange square. The customer goes through language selection. He presses 1, indicating that he is B2B, B2C, residential, and he wants to proceed to sales department. He presses once again, and he lands to a department called Mobile Service LOB. Now, if we take all this journey, it will account to almost 30% of all transfers within this call. So we have two issues. We have excessive transfer rate, which is above 10%, and we also need to hire 30% more agents in order to solve it. So how we can address this issue, which we are initially able to identify by employing tree diagrams. Now we identify the issue. Now, just a side comments, in order to find any deviation from a trend line, it's good to use percentages or any normalized values. But in case you want to speak the business language, you better go with the absolute numbers. So in this case, we switch from percentages to average transfer rate per week. We also took a specific part of IVR journey which create issues. We pulled the data from our CRM, customer relationship management system, which provides records for what reason customer was transferred. So we attach the respective freedom to a part of a journey which we are concerned of. And we can see that most of the transfer appears due to customer looking to find an issue related to a postpaid, almost 900. 300 were transferred due to the issue which was related to prepaid. So by adding data to our tree from CRM, we identify the reason for transfers, and now we need to design a solution. Yes, we quantify the impact, and now we have to design a solution. By the way, it might be that your CRM does not have capacity to interact the reason for interaction. This is something which should be addressed, because identifying why the transfer took place can either help you to transform your initial IVR scheme or come up with a neural network algorithm which will predict the reason why the customer transfer took place. Happy time. Solution to decrease transfer. Now, due to the nature of this particular service, one of the approach should be is to create self-service options within IVR structure. But it might not be that IVR which you are dealing with does not offer such kind of capabilities. So how we can address it? We can actually transform reason for transfers into separate IVR selection. So rather than customer going through traditional way from second and first button, we introduce additional selection where customer can indicate that he wants to speak about refilling self-service. And in this case, rather than going through transfer rate, he can directly connect to agents which can provide assistance with prepaid, postpaid, or losses, stolen, refill card questions. This is a very straightforward way, but in this case, by minimal adjustment of our IVR system, we were able to generate significant savings. So let's estimate the savings. We decreased transfer rate from 900 to 300, which makes 500 transfers per week. Let's also assume that year contains 50 weeks, not 52. It's better to make calculation with the numbers which are decimals of 5. So we multiply 500 by 50. So this is our early decrease in transfers. Now we spoke about cost per transfer and cost per call and cost per transfer. Now in your case it might be different, but let's assume for time being that the cost of one transfer is 10 units, let's say 10 euros. So in this case, by multiplying 500 by 50 and by cost per one transfer, we can see that in terms of early perspective, we were able to spare around 250 units of your 250,000,000 of units. In one case it can be euro, and in case be other currency, but with minimal efforts we were able to decrease budget pressure simply by adding a new IVR selection. Okay, let's summarize the outcomes. We spoke about accessibility of data science tools. All tools presented during today's meetings are open source, so any of you with internet connection and a laptop can feel free to install it and to use. We spoke about the importance of EDA. Sometimes you can introduce additional efforts to make sure that your data is clean and your model will perform in the best possible way. We spoke about role storytelling. Now, no matter how good your code is, no matter how beautiful it is, no matter how elegant it is, data science initiative cannot be initiated until you clearly explain what are the possible benefits. So in this case, you have to create a good story. And one of the ways to create a good story is to find appropriate tool for visualization. And in our case, I believe tree diagram is the most appropriate way to visualize the issue we faced. And you have to calculate ROI. Now, ROI it stands for return on investments. It consists of two parts: cost, benefits of the project. In our case, we reduced the expenses, and also how much it costs to run initiative. So in case you are dealing with this line manager, with the stakeholder, and you want to convince that your data science initiative worth efforts, please make sure that you estimate ROI of it, just to be able to quantify the impact and proceed with your result. I think I have one joke for the last 20 seconds. There are three most important people in any company, starting from ascending order of importance. The third one is line manager. Second one is stakeholder. Who is the most important one? Scrum Master. Okay, let's. Now, here are two links for you, one for my profile and one for the kit. I'm going to publish my presentation, and I also plan to publish learning material, just in case of you are interested to learn how to set up Profit Library and how to run it, either in R or Python. Also, thank you for Moldova Developed Countries team for organizing this event, and my Orange colleague for support. Thank you.
Now, let's torture Alex with some questions if somebody has some. Please.
Yes, thanks for a great presentation. I am inspired to see our code on developer conference. My question about forecasting. Did you try to use additional features in Profit? Profits allow you to use additional features like maybe holidays, calendar, or something like it to handle cycles,
yes,
which not includes to seasonal, and if it will,
okay,
was
I can
to
speak
you.
about additional features. I think you're referring to regressors, right? We can talk about this. Now, I will refer to my former work, which was much more highlighted and explicit. Indeed, in Profit, let's say that you are working in FMCG industry. You want to evaluate how much additional sales would be increased if you implement a promotion. So what you can do is take historical data to transform it, to create dummy variable and generate additional regressors, which would help you to predict, to estimate, first of all, the effect of promotional activity and predict it into the future. So in this case, you will have baseline sales as well as sales which increase due to existence of promotion. And in case of Profit, you can actually add this. You can use regressors. In my case, it were dummy variables which indicate whether or not promotion took place. It can also be, for example, marketing expenses, which we dedicated to take online advertising. So essentially, Profit by default account for holidays and for seasonality, which is modeled using a function which are very similar to sinus and cosinus. But if you know that additional event will take place, it can actually also model. If you know that if a promotion will take place, you can actually predict the effect of this promotion. The most notorious example is pandemic. We couldn't expect pandemic, but if we, I didn't want to say it, we'll repeat into the future. But yes, to answer your question, yes, Profit is extremely flexible. It allows aggressors. It definitely allows dummy variable. You can come up with your own holidays, or you can create regression task by using, for example, marketing expenses. So yes, it's extremely good tool.
We have time for one more question if the audience has one. If you have a more private question, you can ask. Okay, one more question, please.
Thank you. A question. I understood how important this can be for a business, but what would you do in the situation when the application doesn't allow you to get the data? How important it is to do adjustments of the application and the data storage to provide the data, to be able to do such an analysis, cost optimizations, and so on?
Well, I'm lucky enough to have this data. So how we can run analytical task in case we have scarcity of data? For this particular example, I expected that the data is readily available. So if you need to run a Profit, you essentially need two columns. The first column is a date, and second column is the actual inbound call volume. But in case you feel scarcity of data, well, you can find a data which should closely resemble your own data set, assume any correlation to create a prediction of a similar data, and project this outcome on your own result. Or you have to come up with a more complicated IVR system which will be able to store the respective data. I haven't faced this particular challenge. You're speaking about limitation of storage?
No, for example, in your case, you have a specific problem to make a better IVR.
Yes, IVR.
But let's not talk about your product. Let's talk about a business that wants to have better sales, better customer satisfaction. They want to introduce this in their daily process of analyzing data, taking better decisions, optimizing costs, and so on, and they don't have the data. They need to prepare it. They need to do adjustments in the code to start counting things,
okay, so the data
metrics, and so on.
The data exists, but there is
there
no
is
way
a process, but
okay.
Not everything is countable.
Okay.
how important is to start making it countable before
At this
going
moment,
on
I
it?
don't have answer
I
besides
will
to
have
hiring
to
a data
stop
scientist.
the private consultation because we have another speaker waiting. But
No,
you-
I will get the answer after
okay,
the meeting.
but you're free to steal him while he's still here and talk with him and take a private consultation.
Yeah, thank you for your time and for opportunity to present here.